Deep sea mining, a new frontier with the potential to yield billions, even trillions of dollars worth of metals, especially ones that will be necessary to build technology that runs on and produces sustainable energy, such as windmills, solar panels, and batteries. Unfortunately, these resources won't come without a cost: the potential destruction of the last ecosystem on Earth unmarred by human activity, the abyssal seafloor. The objects of value in deep-sea mining are polymetallic nodules, potato-sized deposits of metals such as cobalt, copper, manganese, and nickel, as well as precious metals like gold. Not only that, but estimations place the amount of these metals on the seafloor up to 5 times more than the amount found on land, and polymetallic nodules aren't firmly attached to the seafloor, meaning collecting them could, in theory, be as easy as scooping them up. The problems arise due to their depth, as they're found 4 to 6 kilometers or 2.5 to 3.7 miles beneath the surface in pitch-black, freezing conditions under extreme water pressure. And these nodules don't replenish quickly. They accumulate millimeters of diameter over millions upon millions of years. This also means that the ecosystem has remained relatively static for those millions of years, and drastic changes occurring, such as giant machines rolling through and scooping up nodules, could severely disrupt it by kicking up sediment, creating noise and light pollution, and even crushing animals underneath their treads. Mining could harm the vastly diverse organisms that live on and around the seafloor at those depths. Not a lot of deep-sea mining has occurred yet, as only exploratory and not commercial licenses have been issued for various zones of the ocean where polymetallic nodules are concentrated. Because of this, very little is known about what mining will do to the environment. An experiment in deep-sea mining was performed in 1979, and the deep tracks in the seabed from the rovers sent to gather samples are still almost as clear in 2025 as they were the day they were created. Only mobile animals, such as sea stars and fish, had repopulated the disturbed area, while sessile organisms like corals and sponges had not. Development of the most efficient and least impactful possible methods of extraction are still in progress, but the current plans are to send down tractor-sized robots, some costing millions of dollars to construct, that drive along the seafloor collecting the nodules, which are then sent up to the surface via an extremely long tube. Excess sediment would thereafter be discharged near the seafloor, reducing the impact of plumes of mud and heavy metals getting caught in the current and smothering wildlife. Unfortunately, it will be impossible to mine the nodules without disrupting the seafloor ecosystem to some extent, as even if it were possible to pick up the nodules without disturbing any of the surrounding area, which on its own already isn't a viable option, many of the organisms living at that depth grow directly on or within the nodules themselves. And this isn't even addressing what would happen if one of these robots had a malfunction or was somehow damaged, an accident which could spill oil or other pollution into the water. Still, the future of sustainable energy resources may depend on these metal deposits at the bottom of the ocean. As demand increases in the future, terrestrial mines may simply not have enough yield to supply the economy, and it's been argued that above-water mining methods are more disruptive than deep-sea mining. If the world transitioned completely to deep-sea mining, perhaps that would mitigate the overall damage to the planet enough to warrant it. Currently, however, there are multiple calls for a moratorium, or the temporary prohibition of any deep-sea mining endeavors, for at least a decade until the impact has been fully researched and understood. Only 10% of the organisms living on the seafloor have been identified, let alone extensively studied, and concerns have been raised not just for ecological safety, but even pollution from mining affecting coastal communities. Scientists simply don't know what the wider-scale repercussions of deep-sea mining could be. Since the impacts of deep-sea mining are so poorly understood, I think that a decade or so of moratorium is a really good idea. If these resources really are so important, then putting in the time and effort to research and fully understand their importance, as well as how to extract them as safely as possible, should not only be something people are glad to do, but it should be a top priority. Regulations from the International Seabed Authority, ISA, must also be brought up to date on the latest scientific finds, prohibiting anyone from extracting the nodules in ways that are known to severely harm the ecosystem. Some other issues, such as where exactly the parameters of protected areas are, must also be cleared up before serious mining operations can commence. Research into the organisms of the deep sea could benefit humanity as well, not only to help us understand how life on Earth came to be, but potentially to help us develop new medicines or other breakthroughs that could improve human life. Don't mind my dog barking. In conclusion, not enough is known about the seafloor or the impacts of deep-sea mining to definitively say how it may affect the environment. More research is required before large-scale mining operations are deployed, though there are some known risks such as pollution, light, noise, chemical, and otherwise, and the potential for dangerous sediment plumes to bury or choke organisms.